Dating and marriage in prisons is a very unique situation due to the nature of the relationship and the setting. The 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution and later court cases say that prisoners have the right to marry because they retain all rights of free citizens, although it is up to each state to view marriage as a right or a privilege. In courtship and dating for relationships that involve people in prison, the non-imprisoned person will have to provide the most effort because the person in prison cannot go anywhere. They will also have to put a lot of time aside to visit and write letters to their partner in order to keep the relationship going. Most inmates find themselves in relationships with someone they already knew before their incarceration. Other inmates have strangers send them letters and become pen pals to begin a relationship. For most relationships, sex is not a role while the inmate is incarcerated. Federal prisons in 46 states do not allow conjugal visits, which is where sexual activity takes place. Gender norms are not as visible when it comes to prison relationships due to the long periods of time apart. It is an unusual relationship, so both people share the roles of males and females during their time together, while one partner is incarcerated because of the limits put on their relationship. Someone also may act differently due to their time behind. For prisons that do allow marriages, most of them require a marriage packet request for permission to marry an inmate, which the inmate will have to get. Once both partners sign it, they must send it back to the prison with a fee that's an average of $150 to $175 that must be paid. The non-imprisoned person will have to get the marriage license. Before a ceremony takes place, the warden must approve the marriage. The inmate must be eligible to marry and mentally competent. The non-imprisoned person must provide documents that show they are of legal age to marry and a citizen of the country. The non-imprisoned person or either person's family will most likely have to pay for the wedding. To arrange the marriage, the non-imprisoned person will have to meet with a family visiting coordinator. The officiant chosen must be on the approved prison's list. There must also be a witness for the wedding. They must be on the inmate's approved visitors list. Otherwise, the witness can be another inmate. Most prisons usually only allow up to 10 guests. The wedding can take place in the day room, common area, or visitors area. For attire, in most prisons, the inmate will continue to wear their uniform, and the other person must adhere to the conservative prison dress code. Outside food may not be brought into the prison, therefore food must be obtained from inside the institution. The role of the parents is different compared to normal relationships. Many parents may disapprove of their child getting married to an incarcerated person, so they may not be involved. If the parents do approve, they can help in getting the necessary documents for marriage, with transportation and getting letters to and from the prison. They can also just be there for their children. The role of the family can be harder to maintain with a prison marriage because one person cannot go anywhere and there is not much time spent together. They will also be unable to do numerous amounts of things that other couples do. The non-imprisoned person will either live by themselves or with other family members, and the incarcerated person will have to remain in prison until they are eligible for release. The role of the non-imprisoned person is to remain positive and bring hope as their spouse remains in prison. The inmate can work to better their education and vocational training in order to provide for their family, if they are ever eligible to be released. Otherwise, just working on their behavior while in prison is their role too. Depending on which type of prison and where it is located may decide whether the couple has children together. Federal prisons in 46 states do not allow conjugal visits, which is where sexual activity can take place, although either person may already have children from a previous relationship. The parents can help the non-imprisoned person with the children while their spouse is incarcerated. The 4 states that do allow conjugal visits may refer to them as family reunion programs, as they can be designed to help preserve the family unit when other family members come to visit. They can take place in other rooms, trailers, or cabins. However, there is a long waiting list, and it is only for inmates who display good behavior. Divorce is allowed for people who are married in prison. It is extremely common, with some statistics disclosing that 85% of prison marriages end in divorce if the spouse has been there 1 year. The divorce may just take longer and more steps. Depending on the situation and the requirements, a dissolution or annulment may be a better option. If the non-imprisoned person wants a divorce, then they should seek a family law attorney. They can obtain and complete the no-fault divorce forms or incarcerated spouse forms, and they must request a document that shows that their spouse is in prison. They must submit those and a fee to the court. The paperwork should be served to their spouse in prison for them to sign. When an inmate files for divorce, the library legal service or the prison can help with getting the forms and filing a fee waiver or indigent affidavit forms. The prison's legal service can file the completed papers in court and get the documents to their spouse. If there's a hearing, the imprisoned spouse will most likely be unable to attend, so they should see if they could do it over the phone. Infidelity is handled how regular relationships handle it. It is most likely more common because the non-imprisoned spouse is free to do what they want while their spouse remains in prison, and they may never learn about the infidelity. Remarriage is also allowed as long as both people are not married, and they must follow steps in the marriage process as mentioned before.